Video 6, and we're going to have a look at HTML styles. Now, styles are where you begin to come across CSS. CSS cascading style sheets, as I said very early on, is all about laying out the document in the way you want it. It's all about layout, presentation, and everything else. But we've looked at HTML and we've looked at the fact that it gives you standard formats, and as you can see on the page here, we're looking at a standard HTML page. The only thing I haven't done here is save this. Now what I've been doing all the way along is recording a new folder. These lesson numbers, by the way, only relate to when I've created new pages. So remembering to each one to give a new name, new file to, and everything else. So I'm going to call this one styles.html, hypertext, save. So this has been coloured. Now if I save this, as I just have, go to the page, lesson 5, and I can see that that looks like that. The thing is that that's the default way this views. Now the easiest way is to do what they call inline styling, and that simply uses the attribute style. Let's say, for example, that I want to make this a different colour. So let's use colour, and then let's say red. There are certain names we can use, and you can find those on the web very, very easily. If I do that, we can see that changes that. Now, for those of you within the UK, you may think that I can't type, and those of you in America probably think we can't type. The Americans don't use U, and HTML is developed in America, therefore it doesn't use U in colour. So please be aware that if you're confused, if it doesn't seem to work, you may be spelling it in English, not in American English, which clearly doesn't really exist because it can't be English if it's in American. It's American. But that's a linguistic issue. The other things you can do here very, very simply is do things like change the font family. Now to introduce more than one, simply in the style, a semicolon, that's the dot with the comma underneath. Introducing that will allow you to enter more lines. So if I want to, I can introduce more CSS. Now notice the colon, so what I've got here is what is the attribute I want to change, and the colon tells me what I want to change it to. I'm going to change it to Verdana, semicolon to end it, save. Again, looking at that, if I wish to save that, I get that. There are other things we can look at, and we can change all kind of things. This inside the speech marks is called CSS, and therefore you need to start looking at CSS. So if you want to make something bigger or bolder or smaller or whatever you want, you need to therefore start to investigate the CSS side of this. The other side to this is, I just want to quickly have a look at one other aspect. I could do a line center. Notice the bad spelling. That's not bad spelling, that's American spelling. If I do that and run that, that moves that to the center. Seems to work beautifully, and that's really, really nice. So there we go. However, do you remember I said don't do anything in HTML to do with layout, and this is the prime example. This is what we call a deprecated attribute. It doesn't exist anymore, or it does, but it won't do. It will disappear. So we can see that obviously it still exists in this browser, but it will stop existing in the future. So don't introduce things into this. Get used to the idea of styling. How would I do that? Well, what I would do is I'd replace all that with put that into the CSS. I'm just going to put the semicolon on the end. That's just me. I like to have semicolons, so it works. And that produces exactly the same look. Now the question might be, well, hold on, that's a hell of a lot more typing, but I warned you of that very early on. It might appear, and it is longer, but it's the correct thing to do. Well, we're talking about the correct thing to do. You may find very happily that if you don't put the paragraph end in there, then the system will quite happily sort that out for you. It may sort it out for you. Don't know if this is going to work. This will be an interesting experiment. Nope, didn't work. So that doesn't work, but the other one does work indeed without any real problems. The thing is, you shouldn't do it. If you miss off something, unexpected things can happen. You have to make sure your code's correct. The other thing you'll see is you'll see people all over the web using capitals. Please don't use capitals. You shouldn't do. Again, nothing's going to go wrong, but it's the right way of doing it. Everything should be lowercase, and on your mobile devices, on your mobile phones, all these other devices where error correction is a lot smaller, there's a chance that you're going to encounter problems. And you won't understand why. Get used to the right conventions, get used to the right way of looking at things. Now, so this is styling. What about backgrounds? Well, actually, you can apply rules to the body. For example, I could do style equals I'll put my semicolon in because I like to do that. Now, what a beautiful website, even if I say so myself. Stunning. That is a style introducing that. There is a deprecated, and when I say deprecated, let me just show you. Here's the HTML P tag, the paragraph tag, and we can see that a line is there. It tells me the options, and there's the word deprecated, and it tells me use styles instead. Deprecated. It's going to disappear. Don't use it. Really simple. So we've got there very simple use of background color to change that. The introduction of HTML and CSS, the introduction of CSS for you to use. Let's increase the size of this. So let's just add a new line. Let's make it a percentage. So we can use percentages. That's 130% of normal font size, so it's much smaller. We can use pixels, px for pixels. Okay, that's taken the mic. We can simply notate, we can use something called EMs. Certainly going to be, well, I don't know if it's welcome or welcome. Cool, that hurts the eyes. All kind of things you can do here without any problems, and if you don't like it, simply remove the offending part, save it, and the system will return to its default setting. It's easy enough, simple enough to do. You can apply it. I've applied it to the H1s, but there's nothing wrong with applying any style to any of the formats. So I'm going to add it to there now. If I do that, it's simply going to adapt it into there. Becomes really simple. Notice how this is defaulted. My H1 is defaulted to its basic setting. So that's using styles, and that's the beginning of CSS, and that takes me back to the W3 Schools site. It really is the best resource to use. You have to get used to it. Ignore the right hand side. So I had a lot of advertising, ignore it. It's the left hand side with all the shortcuts, and it's the center that's got all the information. If you go to w3schools.com, there's the site. You might question where everything is. Well, you've got web references here, but I can go to the tutorials, all down there. I've got the examples and everything else, but if I go to HTML tutorial, it actually takes me through a whole list of ways of using HTML. But if I go up to here and click on references, then I am taken to the reference page. Go to HTML. There's CSS, by the way. Go to CSS, we can have a look. It'll take me to the CSS, and there are all the references and the properties I can use. So if I wanted to have a look at background, I've got them all there. Background color takes me to the page, and there's the code. Notice there's the words I can use, and there's something else I can use here, and even what we call red, green, blue, RGB colors. We'll be looking at those in a much later video, but for now that's enough on HTML and the introduction on CSS. Explore, have fun, that's how you're going to learn.